Hi, my name is David. My background started back in Israel. I spent several years in the Israeli Navy building and basically managing defense systems. So it was tech, electronics, and missiles. Never fired a missile in my life, but spent a lot of time looking at systems and pushing buttons. And then spent about 5 years building software development, B2B fintech products, you can call it today, specifically for the financial industry in Israel. And after that, I took a sharp turn into venture capital. So spent about 10, 12 years almost in different stages in venture capital, from early stage associate all the way through an M&A advisor working with huge corporates. And after doing that for 3 years, I ended up moving to the UK, led the early stage investment vehicle for Telefonica, O2 at the time, built a portfolio of about 140 startups across the UK and Ireland. And that led me to start my own fund, raised 150 million pounds to invest in early stage startups across the UK with 4 other partners. And in 2020, left the fund and joined an amazing startup called Wefarm as the COO. Wefarm went through a hell of a journey in the last 2.5 years. We grew to about 150 people, 3.5 million users, and we've moved fully remote in 10 different countries, but unfortunately had to close the company end of last year. And since then, I've been fractional COO and a venture partner with different kind of VCs, focusing on helping seed and Series A founders get to the next stage, from operations all the way through fundraising and the likes. So it used to be on my CV way back when, but I was actually a salsa instructor for several years, and I used to dance almost on a weekly basis. I've met several people that did a similar transition. It's actually different for each of us. I think for me, there was 2 things, which is after more than a decade in venture capital, I missed doing stuff. I think VC is a very privileged position. You work with super smart people and back them, but most of the work itself is basically coaching and advisory. And you touch a bit and hopefully impactful with different founders. But it's very, very different than taking something, owning it through and through. And I think I miss doing shit that matters. Actually having an impact, getting stuff done is what actually started my entire career, what I enjoy doing. And after 10 years, realized, and a VC, realized that I miss doing that again. Yes, theoretically, there are some. I think that the challenge, and you probably, like, I've seen some of the episodes, every COO says that every COO role is different, and it is true. So I can say that one of the best things that you can take if you're thinking about moving from venture capital into an operating role is the strategic thinking on market understanding, dynamics, on how the market moves, but also the ability to actually drive deeper and quick understanding of the drivers. As a COO, you need, and again, depends if you're more commercial, more finance, you need to be able to feel comfortable with numbers, but be a balance between high-level strategic and on-the-ground operations. So I used to do a lot of that with VC, and taking that into practice as a COO was super helpful. So one of the challenges from VC to COO, and depends which startup you end up working with, but predominantly for me, it ended up being a startup that I invested originally, and I was on the board for several years. One of the biggest challenges is realigning the relationship with the CEO and founder, because as a board member and investor, they report to you. However, as a COO, you report to them. And working and defining that ahead of time and being clear on what is the responsibility, what are you accountable for as an individual, and understanding that you now report to that person is super, super critical. I actually, before taking the role, I did two important things in my understanding. I talked to other VCs who did the transition, and got a better understanding from them what were the challenges and what they would have done in hindsight. And second, actually a lot of learnings from those discussions ended up with me and Kenny, the founder and CEO of Wefarm, writing down literally an ownership accountability list of what will fall within my bracket and what will not, to align and to be better on. We literally wrote the detailed job spec in as part of the process itself. On the switch side, I think it's very difficult to move from an operator to a VC, and not because what most people think. I think one of the challenges is the fact that good operators are good at getting shit done. As a VC, you don't do stuff. You help other people do stuff by coaching them, by advising, by connecting, which is a completely different mentality. And I've seen a lot of great operators fail to be good investors because they tend to be end up being very micromanagers. The second part is, as an operator, you only have, quote unquote, one bet, which is the company you work at. As a VC, you need to balance between portfolio. And the time is actually not rightfully balanced. The really good ones that are flying, never hear from them because they don't need you. The ones that struggle are the ones that you end up working with, but again, you can't do the work for them. So there's a lot of aspects where letting go matters a lot, and understanding that as an investor, your relationship with the day-to-day will be different than an operator. So on the day-to-day as a fractional, actually changes based on the customers. I work with different clients based on the need, usually with the CEO. So we adjust on a quarterly basis what are the priorities for the CEO and the senior leadership team. So I work sometimes with the entire team, it's either strategy, operations improvement. A lot of conversations are, for example, about how do you move remote. A lot of people assume it's just you move online. There's a lot of foundational work about transparency and trust that you need to build into the company in order to do that. So it differs based on day and clients. I think the really interesting thing is that even as a COO for a startup, what you start doing and your role changes over within a span of a quarter, actually, because your job, and this is a term I used to use when people asked me what my actual day-to-day looks like. I said my job is, an unofficial title is chief shit umbrella, because my job is to make sure that I stop all the shit so the teams can work. You know that basically the shit changes every day. So there's a structure for the week, and there's the one-to-ones, there's the check-in with leadership of departments that report to you, but then there's everything else that wasn't expected and you suddenly need to deal with. So a lot of that basically falls down to your ability to jump in and solve the problem and actually remove all the hustle from the teams and the leaders to free their time and efforts to be able to put the resources in their time into moving the company forward. One of the things I see that works best is understanding is coming with no ego. A lot of people that work in startups focus a lot about the let's say things that focus on outside, on brand and operations within that and how it looks in the media. As a good COO, your job is to make sure everybody else rises. You shouldn't focus on that and focus that the company operates better. So having no ego, or basically able to maintain that balance between ego and performance matters a lot. I think the ability to learn fast, especially in startup, this is true for everybody, but as a COO, you need to balance between high-level strategic thinking, very focused practical operations, and different aspects. So what you need for legal, what you need for ops, if you have hardware or software, if you have underground operations. A lot of that changed based on scale. So when Wefarm was 50 people, it was different than 150. So at early stage, you probably need to be able to do a lot of the stuff. The bigger you become, the more you need to put the framework of thinking that the middle management is being coached and led in a way that they can make the right decisions without you being in the room. So a lot of that boils down to be able to articulate priorities and frameworks of decisions. So it's a balancing aspect. The faster the company grows, how you evolve with it. I think one of the biggest challenges I've seen, and I get a lot of people approach me as well to give feedback of their proposition and so on, is that there's a difference between doing operations in a startup and being a COO in a startup. And not to diminish either of those, but people that a lot of people in the market today, there's a lot of experienced people out there doing different stuff. And I think the main challenge is, if you look at all of us doing fractional, the high level proposition, because the nature of the work is I can do everything, just give me a chance, is that it all looks the same. So if you actually want to develop that, what I usually recommend is find one or two things that you're above and beyond everybody else that you be known for. And the second thing is learn to market yourself. Super difficult, especially if you compare it to the fact that I just said that it should be people who are not driven by ego. But one of the challenges is suddenly you become your own salesperson. So finding partners and different people that can promote you on top of what you already do is super critical. So Alma was started by Christine Dipali, Ella, and myself 3.5 years ago, more or less. And the thesis was very simple. We need to diversify the access for capital for female founders. Personally, I came to it through my own personal journey, where I focused a lot on connecting women and female founders to investors. And I got exposed to what I call fundraising while being a woman, which is a completely different experience than being a man and fundraising. A lot of it started from like a variety of weird comments, misogynist and so on, all the way through predatory comments such as, let's continue this discussion in my hotel room. And you'll be surprised how many women have gone through different experiences within that spectrum. But almost every woman I know, not to say all, but probably most, have something within that spectrum as a discussion. And what I realized from my perspective was people connect, especially in early stage investment, through people. The reason you invest is I believe in you as an individual, and the chances is like what we always talk about, role models. If you don't see them, it's very difficult to become one. If we create a community of people, of diverse people, men and women with different backgrounds, the likelihood to find the ability and connect with an individual at such an early stage and believe in them resonates more, because you can find yourself in them. Similar to what happens if you're a middle-aged white guy with money that most likely will connect with a young white person just because you have a shared perspective and so on. And so we started Alma, and basically the community grew. Currently about 270 angels. We invested in about 150 startups, all led by women, or co-founded by women, or solely funded by women. And the average ticket is 30K, the median is 10. And we also invested in 7 different funds. The Alma itself is a community, so we're not a syndicate. Each individual angel connects to something they like, but our entire approach is to create a distributed approach to it. So just create access and remove the barriers of funding.